Good evening, everyone. I am CA Hemant Kumar Moore, moderator of today's webinar. Before starting today's session, I would like to appraise all of you about the 21st World Congress of Accountants, which is going to be held for the first time in India from 18th November 2022 to 21st November 2022. To know more about this, I would like to request our technical team to play a short informational video. Please see this and register yourself for the same, the mega event.
Done, sir. Okay. Okay, sir. After 10 seconds, we will be give us an audio countdown. Okay. Okay, sir. Five, four, three, two, one. We are live now, sir.
I am delighted to welcome you all to the webinar being organized by the Committee on Economic, Commercial Laws and Economic Advisory of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. It is my pleasure to be a moderator for this session on webinar on human resource management and labor laws. Before starting today's session, I would like to brief you about this committee, which is organizing this webinar. The committee, in line with one of the Institute's objectives, partners in nation building, and with a vision to contribute to the economic development of India, aims to undertake such activities to technically equip and broaden the scope of expertise of the members to enable them to derive advantages in the rapidly changing scenario and to enable our members to render various business advisory and support services. Now, this is intended, this is a 4-day program. We already had 2 wonderful sessions in the previous 2 days. Day 1 was setting up robust HR department and policies. Day 2 yesterday was payroll processing. And today's session is on HR audit and how to be the best employer in the world. Our eminent speaker will speak about the said topic, which is of professional interest to all of us. Now it's my turn, my privilege to introduce the learned speaker for today's session. We are fortunate to have with us a very distinguished and learned speaker on the topic. Is none other than Sri Kevin Dias. Kevin sir is professionally qualified with an MBA in HR and a degree in law, both from Mumbai University. His rich and diversified experience in the field of human resources spans over 25 years across various industries such as manufacturing, retail, engineering, and ITES. He has experience in growing and managing complex large workforce of more than 150,000 employees. His expertise in people strategy, acquisition, development and management, HR policies, reward and benefit, HR digitization, governance, integration, compliance, employee relations, global mobility, employee relations, inclusion and diversity, employee experience, wellness, and HR transformation has enabled organizations to be much more competitive. Now, before I request Kevin sir to start the session, just a brief word about the previous 2 sessions. In day 1, when Kevin sir informed us about how to set up a robust HR department, he explained to us the importance of culture in an organization, the importance of job description and performance management, and how to draft an employment contract. This was indeed an eye-opener for all of us. Yesterday, day 2 was on payroll processing. So payroll processing, by definition, are the steps involved in calculating the total remuneration of each employee, as we all understand. But Kevin sir told us that it is much more than that. Payroll transcends money. These are Kevin sir's words. It is critical to keep a business functional and maintain a positive workplace and atmosphere, because it is related to the trust of employees in the organization. So the last 2 days have been wonderful and learning for all of us. And today is, I'm sure it's going to be better than the last 2 days. So taking benefit of Kevin sir's experience and expertise, I would request Kevin sir, Sri Kevin Dias, our chief speaker for today's session, to start the session. Kevin sir, please take over.
Thank you so much, Hemanji. Thank you once again for your wonderful introduction. And also thank you once again to the Committee of Economic, Commercial Laws and Economic Advisory for having me here. So day 3, right? You have been listening to me for the last 2 days And I hope I've tried to give HR, explain to you HR with a twist. Okay. And that twist is a lot to do with some of my experiences, some things that have worked, and a lot of things that have not worked. And I was going to the understanding that I would like to share. So today's topic, and I must appreciate each one of you to have actually chosen to understand HR, and it itself shows the progressive thought processes that each one of you come with, and I salute you on that. So today's topic, HR audit, but more importantly, how is that in terms of creating a great place to work? Two different things, but are very interlinked. So I'm going to attempt to interlink these two. HR audit, I'm going to give it a little bit of twist, not only from your day-to-day HR understanding, but I will try to throw in elements around mergers and acquisitions. Because for all of you on the call and for us, today that is the world of mergers and the world of acquisitions. And it's important to understand, is there a role that HR plays, while at least the finance team plays a very, and legal team plays a very significant role in that whole area. So I'll try to give that twist to HR audit. And then what I will do is spend more time trying to walk you through how to create a great place to work. And hopefully share with you some principles, some frameworks, which help you in terms of understanding that it is not just a notion that is a great place to work. There's a lot of work that has been going on around the world to make any company a great place to work. So I'm going to share my screen right now. Okay, wonderful. I hope my screen is visible. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to dive straight into the concept of HR audit. And I'm going to expand on this one slide and walk you through exactly what happens. All of you in your professions are very familiar with audits. So audit is not a new word for you at all. The only new element here is HR. Otherwise, audit, whether it is your statutory audits or whether it is the audit that you have done as a good measure inside your organization, as a good corporate citizen, is an audit itself. So I truly believe that audit is very critical because it is important for us to look at a benchmark. And that benchmark is against something that we call as a standard. And how are we performing against a standard? Number one. Number two, everything that we do has to be defined through an outcome. I've said it in the last 2 days, and I repeat it again today, that even for HR, all the HR delivery needs to have some outcome. So the audit also points towards, is that outcome happening in the first place? Is that outcome a relevant outcome? So those are some questions that an audit in HR needs to answer. The third element is in terms of compliance, because compliance is a very critical element in ensuring a good corporate citizen. So therefore, compliance in HR also today with the new labor laws has significant impact when it comes to penalties or interest and damages. Not only that, it is also reputational. And so therefore, compliance plays a very critical role. So what I'm going to do today now is walk you through each of these and help you get an idea that if you were to walk through an HR audit, what should you find, what should you be looked for, and why are you doing this? Now, right from tradition, people have looked at, we've had industrial relations and it's become human resources, employee relations, and we've used those different words. And somehow, while operations and sales and even accounts and finance have got into a matrix or got into SLAs, as they call it, where you are able to benchmark and evaluate, HR had been a little slow and now has caught up. And so every HR process is significant. So let's start with saying an onboarding process. Now people look at the onboarding process and say, what is so much there in it? And I'm going to link all this to the great place to work. Okay, so that's how I'm going to take the flow of my presentation. So people would look at it and say, onboarding mein kya hai? What is so important about onboarding? Kevin got an offer letter. He clearly understood this is the job, this is the designation, this is the company, this is the location of my work, and this is the salary. Finished. What more is there to it? Then when he comes inside, he has to give documentation, his certificates. He has to fill a Lamba form which has almost 180 to 250 pieces of information. He goes through an induction. He meets with the team, he meets with the supervisor, and life begins. So what's so great about all this? Do we really need to do an audit in this particular area? Now, if you look at it plainly, the answer to that question could be a maybe. But if you are going to look at this and say, I want to build a great place to work, then suddenly this got immense importance. And I will share it in my slides. So I will talk a little bit more about this area when I'm making it a great place to work. So let us look at the steps. If Kevin is joining in, remember I said it in my last 2 days, everybody comes in to understand must be true concept. So what is this must be true concept? It's about that, say, I heard in the market about the company like this. The recruiter said, company aise aise kar raha hai. This is how we are growing. This is the new technology, blah, blah, blah. When I talked to my friends, I heard something. Now I took my offer letter and I joined. The first thing that I'm coming inside to understand is all that I heard true? So I'm coming inside to check, is it must be true? So when we talked about payroll yesterday, we said it is more than just money transaction. It's about the trust. And that trust creates that must be true. And I tick mark saying, yes, as a company, this pays accurately and on time. And I know that my dues will always be paid to me. I'm safe. So therefore, HR processes need to exude constantly that ability to impact the value systems of an organization, which is trust, which is confidence, which is a sense of belonging into an organization. So if I said that I'm onboarding somebody and that process is not consistent, so induction happened on the 5th day, suddenly it happened on the 15th day, not on the first day or second day, it clearly shows as an organization that I'm not finding my employee or don't care about my employee. If the employee doesn't know about this organization and he starts getting onto the job, his ability to impact the job is definitely low. So therefore, see how important suddenly it became. If you had to give an employee code or you had to give the badge, the iCard on day 2, it has to be given on day 2. If it's given on day 3, day 4, day 5, it doesn't matter. Those are all problems. When the person comes in the organization, he says, oh, I heard all this, but it is not must be true. So, pata nahi, is it a good place to work? So first impression is a very important area. So now have you seen HR processes? So whenever we are drawing an HR policy, every HR policy needs to have at the end of it, what is the outcome? The outcome is either performance appraisal needs to be done in a particular way, particular time, and the process. If the onboarding has to be done in a particular way, the confirmation, everything that HR does has to have a defined outcome. So therefore, HR audit starts with understanding whether this HR process is firstly there. Secondly, is it practiced? Because sometimes what is there on paper generally doesn't be practiced in 100 out of 100 places. So is it practiced? If it practiced, is it consistently and efficiently hitting the outcome? We spoke about that yesterday and the day before also, the 2 words, consistently and efficiency. So HR process audit is very important for every organization. Something that should happen at least half yearly, if not more, or even yearly, because it gives a benchmark to understanding whether really we are walking the talk or it is some very good documentation that got created and it is there on the intranet or it is there in some HR department's table. Now, there is a second part to it when you say great place to work. Now, an HR process has to also be relevant. So there's the millennials who are joined into the organization. Earlier, we said they are the future workforce. Now they are the current workforce. So is your HR processes relevant for all skills? So there's a CA joining, there is a marketing expert joining, there's an IT professional joining. There is a millennial joining. There's a person who's already in the age group of 35 to 45 joining. Is the HR process relevant for such people? Is the question that an HR audit seeks to understand. And if they find that the HR process is either too long or too short or is not comprehensive, or it is not viewed as being relevant by the employee who receives it, the internal customer, then those processes need to be highlighted and changed. So the HR audit on HR processes are critical. The third piece on HR processes. Organizations have grown. Suddenly there is exponential growth and we grow dramatically. Now, when we grow, we don't only grow in the current geography, say Mumbai, but you will grow in different cities in the country. And hopefully you will grow to different parts of the world, so different countries. Now, when you do that, sometimes you do quick fixes because the growth rate is important. It is important to hit the road running. And so you start putting HR processes or any processes in place as a quick fix. Now, that may be okay for that particular time. But is that the correct thing to do? And sometimes consistently taking those immediate ad hoc processes forward creates inefficiencies. Inefficiencies by virtue of extra manpower, inefficiencies by virtue of cumbersome work, inefficiencies by virtue of errors, inefficiency by virtue of information reports and MIS coming in late. So therefore, an HR process audit also needs to understand, is the HR process robust enough to be dealing with things in different geographies? Is there a better way to do it? Do I really need so many people to deal with this HR process? Is there an efficiency element that is coming out of this? Are there checks and balances, or this is just simply cumbersome and wasting time? So these are all elements, and tomorrow the CEO, CFO, etc. want the dashboard. Is it really available in the true form in a quick span of time? The HR process needs to answer that. So HR audit from an HR process point of view involves all these three critical elements. Okay, so that's HR processes. The next is skills and compatibility. Any organization, as it grows, it starts with saying, I have 4 or 5 lines of work. And then as it grows, it adds the 5th and the 6th. And sometimes the first 3 also go through change because the business environment is dynamic. Now, each one of us come with a certain set of skill set. See, there is your technology, there is your infrastructure, there is your, if it's a service industry, your computers and technology, and if it's manufacturing, your machinery and raw materials. But at the end of the day, there needs to be the skill of the employee to run, manage, and take care of that on an efficient basis. Not only that, the CEO's question on sustainability needs to be answered, and that too not answered at only one point in time. It has to be answered consistently to ensure perpetuation of growth into an organization. So does the organization have the required skills fit for its growth and fit for its future? Is a question an HR audit needs to check. So do I have the skill sets on a technology that I'm going to build? Do I have the skill sets to manage a project which is double the TCV that I am managing today? So there are types of skill sets that are important in an organization. Not only that, you already have a set of skill sets in the company. Are those skill sets good enough for me to promote and take forward? Or there needs to be a change that needs to happen there. So for example, I have a manager who's worked in the company for 7 to 8 years, 10 years. Now I need to promote him to assistant general manager or general manager. Is that skill set relevant? And is he there to put him into that grade and level to manage that level of responsibility, complexity, and accountability? The answer to that question is in the HR audit. So therefore, the HR audit on skills is very important. Even in a mergers and acquisition scenario, one of the things that are looked at is the leadership team. Does it have the skills and the ability to continuously lead and develop and grow an organization to what it had benchmarked or set as a business strategy? And is the middle management, In most organizations, it's the middle management that actually drives and runs and helps the organization gather speed and grow. So are they compatible? Number one, do they have the skills? And thirdly, are they safeguarded? So these are some elements that the HR audit of skills and compatibility look at. The third piece, compliance. All of us know about compliance. We talked about it yesterday. We're going to talk a little bit about it today again. So compliance is a lot to do with ensuring that we're doing the right things by virtue of the law. Now, whether it is minimum wages, whether it's a contribution to PF, ESIC, whether it is being better than the law in terms of, or equal to the law in terms of giving leaves or medical claim benefits and so on and so forth. So compliance is a very, very critical element in all this. Not only that, most organizations also have people working or traveling to outside countries to work. So is immigration laws followed? Are you on the right work permit? If you're on a business visa, then are you sure you are doing work that is not contributing to the profit of an organization? So as to have complied with the immigration rules and regulations. Are you on the right visa? Are you paying the person correctly in terms of the requirements of the job in that country? Are you being able to advertise that job first locally before hiring an expat? So all these things come under compliance. Even if you have an international worker working in India, are you complying with those elements? So compliance in terms of your month-on-month compliance, that is your payroll-related compliance, and your compliances towards your registers, records, and maintenance. Also compliance by virtue of being able to look at the essence of the law and is that truly practiced in the actions that get meted out to an employee. So these are things that the HR audit also seeks to understand when it comes to compliance. Terms and conditions. Now, most of you would ask in the question saying that how is terms and conditions so relevant? I mean, it is so simple, right? It's there in the appointment letter, right? It is there in the appointment letter. Now, especially when it comes to mergers and acquisitions, or whether it is even in your, as you grow as an organization to different geographies, terms and conditions are very, very critical. Most of us, as we seen in yesterday when we looked at, or day before yesterday, sorry, when we looked at the appointment letter, one of the things I highlighted was the way in which you write is very critical. What you put in terms of only contractual terms and conditions, very important. So therefore, an audit also looks at, also looks at in terms of saying, do we have the right terms and conditions to keep our employees happy and retain key critical resources? Number one. Number two, have we gone and committed terms and conditions that are going to impact an organization? For example, have we written somewhere that you are eligible for performance bonus, but the person has not performed, but yet you are now written eligible, which means you have to pay him. So you see, are there terms and conditions, especially at CXO level, CEO level, that are in the interest of the organization? So these are things that an HR audit looks. Also, if the terms and conditions have been maintained, are they being carried out? Or as an organization, have we forgotten about certain terms and conditions to carry it out? So these are some things that I think are important to look at, especially from a HR audit point of view. Then policies and structures. Now, HR policies and HR structures or organizational structures, whether it is grades, their bands, etc., are important to get reviewed. Simply because it is important to attract, develop, and retain employees consistently in this organization. And if I have policies that are not favoring this, then you know that you are at one end wanting to do something, and on the other end, you're putting things in place against it. So therefore, audit on policies and structure is also important. Do I have the right structure in place to help grow this organization? Have I categorized departments? Have I categorized SBUs? Have I categorized the critical functions impacting the operations in a correct manner, so that in the organization there is no infighting. Okay, everybody works towards the goal, and that goal is profit, and that goal is top line or revenues as the organization has deemed it fit. So it is important for us to look at any of our policies, one which are missing. They could have been impactful policies that we don't have, which impact our ability to hire great guys. I'll give you an example. Everybody thinks of that the salary is the biggest element of attraction. Yes, it is important. The salary is good to get somebody in the door, but the salary is not a factor to keep somebody inside the door. So what is that keeps somebody inside the door? One of the elements is benefits. So let's look at, say, for example, medical benefit. Can we actually look at the medical benefit and make that so super that people look at that and say, wow, and that becomes the reason of attraction and the reason to stay? So you see how you took just one benefit and strategically used it to your advantage. So an HR audit needs to also highlight and understand, are there certain HR policies that we are underplaying and need to overplay it so as to have looked at the larger greatness of an organization? There is a philosophy of an organization and its culture and values, as we spoke about. And is the HR policy exuding that, or it is acting detrimental? So the company is magnanimous, but the HR policy is cutting corners here and there and preventing the organization from achieving its vision of being a magnanimous organization or larger than life. So I think these are things that are very important when you look at an HR audit. Now, as you travel this HR audit journey, the HR audit also brings about a lot of elements in terms of the competence of the HR team itself. So one is the element of how the organization is getting impacted through all these elements of HR, but also how is the HR team, okay? And one of the other elements of HR audit is the employee listening or the grievance. Now, why is that relevant? Is because if I am getting similar grievances being raised time and time again, that means something is drastically wrong. If there are accidents happening or there are things like that happening on a frequent basis, then our safety policy, etc., that is there in paper is not really actually there in practice. So something is wrong. If we are able to look at and understand that people leave the organization with a bad taste in the mouth, now that is very detrimental to the organization by virtue of the full and final payments being late, having errors and things like that. Let me give you an example. If you go to a shop to buy a shirt or a dress or whatever you may want to buy, and you roamed around the shop, you looked at the ambience, you found the product, and now you are happily marching towards the cashier. Now, when you go there, you see that lamba line, and suddenly the cashier is not bothered, he's rude. Now, ask yourself this question. You had a good experience, you walked through the store, you liked the ambience. You bought the shirt and you bought the dress that you liked. But what you walk out with is that last experience, that see the line, they don't even bother. Look at the way he was billing and he was so rude, he was not helpful. You leave with that. The next time you come, that will play on your mind. So you will come purely out of necessity, not out of love, to come and want to that place. So similarly like that in an organization, if the F&F process is not done in a particular manner, please note that you are leaving somebody with a bad taste. They live in the same community that you're hiring from. And so it is definitely going to impact what others who are going to come new into your organization think about your organization. So HR audit transcends itself. It's no longer just about a checklist against which you are checking. The HR audit also brings about whether the organization is fit for the future and fit for its growth. And the moment you look at HR audit from that perspective, you shy away from the fact that, oh my God, what's going to come out? And you're more looking forward to hearing any bad news, because it only helps in the ability to bring out what is needed. The last element that I have not put here, simply because I'm talking about it tomorrow, is training and development. So HR audit on training and development is also critical. It has 2 or 3 facets. First, are we doing the right things in terms of training? Secondly, is the training relevant to bring the skill sets? Remember, we are doing a skills audit also. So is it relevant to have brought, enhanced the skills, or it is training is going left and the skill requirements are going right? How is that actually happening in the organization? And lastly, is there a return on investment? So is that training being embedded in the organization? Are we actually seeing people use some of the principles of that? Not only that, it is not only the onus of the employee, it's also the onus of the boss to allow them to use those principles that they have learned in a training. So for example, a company goes ahead and does design thinking as a training. Now all the mid-level managers are equipped with the knowledge of design thinking. Now design thinking is a very powerful tool, but it has a series of steps that you must follow before you come up with an idea that you think it'll work. Now, when they try to apply what they learned and the boss comes back and says, "Arey, jaldi chalo, jaldi, we don't have time, we have to complete this. So forget about the steps here, just move close to the final." Now you see what you've done? You very inadvertently have ruined the design thinking training program that they have gone through. So the HR audit actually looks at all these aspects to bring out to make an organization more robust. So you see, HR audit is not only about the HR department, it impacts the organization as a whole. Because if you are able to look at each of these and bring out the consistency, the efficiency and the robustness, the top line will increase. So will the bottom line. And the organization starts looking healthy and healthy. So I think what I'm trying to share with you is that we need to move away from the traditional approach of what we look at the word audit and see how an audit is doing much more or bringing out things that add value to the man taking the decision or the woman taking the decision. One, in terms of its transactions, but secondly, in terms of what are those strategic decisions I need to take that will help the organization to grow. So this is what I'm going to share with you on HR audit. Now, from here on, I would like to talk more with you on this topic of a great place to work. So what really is a great place to work? Now, all of us would have seen the certifications, okay? And a lot of companies have the certification of a great place to work and consistently achieve the great place to work from the Great Place to Work Society. And nothing wrong with that. But let us understand the building blocks towards reaching this great place to work pedestal. So what are those? So the first thing is, why do you need a great place to work, or GPTW as it's known as? So firstly, it is about trust. When an organization is a great place to work means that, and I'm going to link this with the next concept, okay? It is all interlinked. What I'm talking about today is very interlinked. So your HR audit, I started with HR audit because that is actually something that you do at the end. But I started with that to bring that excitement and give you a relevance. And now I'm going to walk you through from a great place to work to the process, and then you'll realize why that audit is important. So firstly, it is about trust, which means that HR processes and the culture and values in the organization are of such a nature that it builds trust. Secondly, I can compare my culture and workplace with the best of the best. Okay. So you are able to look at now best practices when it comes to building workplace culture. I also truly believe that no two workplace cultures are the same, because your company philosophy and values are different. So, but by and large, there are some basic principles that are common. But a workplace culture gets defined by the organization and must be defined by the organization itself, starting from the MD, the promoter, or the CEO, to the last person on the floor, including the security guard that opens the door and the gate. Second, a great place to work also shows commitment. Commitment to employees that we are always going to look at aspects to improve. Now, when you see this and you check and you correlate it with audit, you see how it correlates. So when you say that I'm always going to improve, means I also need audit. So somebody has to come and check and say, is it good or not good? So therefore, it is a commitment. You cannot just simply say great place to work, main pahunch gaya, and now nothing I need to do. Sit down. No, it is not like that. Fourthly, it's all about how people perceive you. Now, when you're a great place to work, remember, you as human beings and me as human beings are also driven by our emotions and our perception. So when there's a great place to work, think about what kind of perception you are creating in the minds of an employee. Let me give you an example. All of you heard of Ferrari car. Now you know that every Ferrari engine is actually stamped and signed by the engineer or the person who builds it, okay, in the workshop. Now it's a very simple and small thing, right? But look at the sense of pride and the perception that the employee carries, that this is what we are doing when we build a Ferrari. It is that sense of pride that you got to create. Now, all of us will say, "Arey sir, what a Ferrari hai, we are doing something." No, it is not that. You define what is the sense of pride you want to create in your organization with whatever you have. Because whatever you have, trust me, is special. It is just that we never thought of it in the manner that it is also a great thing, and it also needs to create a sense of pride in our organization. Thirdly, it also looks at the brand. Now, earlier, when we looked at brand value, it was a multiple of what technology you have and so on and so forth, go into the element of your brand value and your valuation. But now, even being a great place to work adds to that brand value and to the valuation of an organization. Not only this, the employee satisfaction survey consistently improving for over 3 years to 5 years adds to the valuation of an organization. So you see how HR also plays a role, because people is the most important resource in valuation of an organization. It's also like this. I remember when there was an organization that was getting merged, bought by a PE firm, one of the key things that came out in the valuation was that there is a huge amount of compatibility, skill, and camaraderie in the top management. And therefore, the organization is valued much more than what the paper would say. Because if the team is super gelled, super aligned, and they definitely like and love each other to work with each other, the organization will grow. And that is what exactly happened. And the PE firm made its money in 2.5 years. So you see how a great place to work element adds to the valuation of an organization. It also attracts and retains talent. It also gives you global recognition. So today, when you as an organization want to grow globally, or maybe you as a CA firm want to be recognized by international bodies and associations and companies for them to give you and do work, a great place to work certification, just like your ISO, any other certification, adds value in the international market. And finally, it is also a community. So when you are there, you are benchmarking yourself among all those who are best of the best. And I'm sure that each one of you on this call want, whether you're working in an organization or you have your own ACA consulting firm, want to be best of the best. So if you want to be best of the best in your own little world, in your own unique way, try to ensure that you imbibe these principles. So I'm reiterating: one, to attract customer centric, your bottom line, how to build speed in your organization, excellence, the culture, all these elements, recognition, all these elements are the reasons why you build a great workplace. Now, as organizations grow, their speed and agility becomes slower and slower. It's like a tanker moving versus a speedboat. So a great place to work where people are happy to walk across, come together, all ideas matter, collaborate, They don't need to do mails, that when you send one email to you, then you send an email to me, and then only I will work. When they just pick up the phone and talk to each other and the work gets done, that is when a large organization keeps the speed and the agility in its own way. And so therefore, the great place to great workplaces foster such kind of things. Yes, it's a huge organization. Yes, there are protocols to follow, approvals to happen. But because of this element of a workplace, which is great and conducive, the work happens faster than it would happen in any other organization. So this is what is very critical. And for you to attract the right person is also important to have a good brand. Now, the brand is not only defined by your technology or the product or manufacturing or whatever you're doing, it also gets defined by the employee brand, okay, externally, the employer. So it's important for us to walk the talk. So great workplaces also walk the talk. Now, just to give you a little idea, this is fine, but just to give you a little idea of how this happens, especially with the great place to work society across the world, including in India. The first is there is a survey that happens, okay? And the survey is given to employees anonymously, randomly. Then there's a culture audit that happens. And this is where they come into your organization and they sit down, they meet up with CXOs, HODs, and different departments to actually understand the culture of the organization. Secondly, while they have known that you have practices, they also come inside and check whether those practices are really in practice or it is only in paper. So you see, the great place to work is also an HR audit. I told you everything is linked. So the great workplace is also an element of audit. And third, once you are certified, meeting all the criteria, you get the certification. And then you have to keep getting yourself recertified every year. So this is how the great place to work process actually works. Now, having said that there's a great place to work, there's also the Great Managers Institute. So it is not correct for me to only talk about the company, but it's also important to talk about the managers. So it is a great manager and a group of great managers that make a great place to work. And the company is the one that also gets the benefit by having great managers inside its organization. So each one of you, as eminent chartered accountants and people in the industry and who are impacting the organization, are also great managers who are ensuring that the employee experience, and if you noticed here, I put it in larger font, employee experience is the new funda. And it is not only true for youngsters who are joining the organization, it is true for you and me. All of us want that experience. All of us want to be cared. All of us want respect. And all of us want to be told that, yeah, this is your responsibility. You give it to me and I will get it done. Don't micromanage me. Isn't that true? So it's the employee experience. Now, most organizations had an idea of this employee experience some 30 years back. But aaj ke tarikh, for today, may not be relevant. So employee experience is another element that needs to change with the changing times. But it doesn't take away the fact that you and I go to work. Not only the money is, yes, important, but you're not staying in the company because of that money. You're staying there because of the respect, the comfort that you have derived, the sense of belonging that you have derived, that you have seen by virtue of the experience you've got. So there is also the Great Managers Institute that rewards and recognizes great managers who have been able to build that employer brand. Okay, and some of the attributes I have put here on the slide to help you understand what this is all about. So it's actually a certification to great managers, and this is a very good thing. So something that organizations use for their people managers. So I'm going to talk about now a framework. So we understood now the HR audit. We understood a great place to work. That's all fine. How do you do it? Is there a benchmark? Is there a framework? Yes, there is a framework. And that framework is called the People Capability Maturity Model. Some of us have heard of CMM with IT companies. So this is kind of stemming out of that. And they came up with the People Capability Maturity Models. It started off with IT companies, okay? And it has 5 levels. And it defines how HR processes in their evolution need to be. And the higher and higher in your evolution, the better and better is your ability to be a great place to work. The better and better is your HR processes. The better and better is the consistency and the efficiency of the HR processes. It's more disciplined, more mature. And finally, you move to a stage of continuous learning. As they say, you reach the stage of nirvana at some point. So HR processes, including finance processes, any processes need to reach a stage of continuous improvement. Once it starts reaching a stage of continuous improvement inbuilt in itself, that's when an organization is working at a super kind of ability and anything and everything that organization can achieve. So People Capability Maturity Model was designed to look at how HR processes are benchmarked against the best of the best. So what is this? Some of the principles that it carries. So first, the workforce is has a capability of directly relating to business performance. Now, all we know in organizations that there is an operations team and everybody feels that it's the operational team's responsibility only to drive business. It is the sales guy only and everybody else is on their own. No. So when the organization has some of the PCMM principles is that everybody in the organization needs to directly be related in some way to that business performance. So whether HR is paying salary on time, and we spoke about that yesterday, the employee satisfaction survey or the onboarding process, and I'm going to talk about that in the later slides. All those things have to be directly related to business performance. Otherwise, why am I there in that place, in that chair, in that designation, earning that salary? Secondly, it has to have a competitiveness, a strategic advantage. So it also has to be measured. Because it can be measured, there also has to be improvement parameters. So PCMM believes that you have to measure everything. Remember, I started off with the HR processes, and I said that all HR processes need to have an SLA or an outcome. So that is one of the principles of PCMM. It has to be measured. And if you can measure it, then you can increase the degrees of measurement, right? So the degrees of improvement. So that is another element of the PCMM framework. The other element is about competencies. What are the competencies that are there inside an organization to help it grow? Is there a competency of learnability where people are constantly learning? It is not about going and opening a book and doing a new course. Those are, yes. But is there learnability from the simple things in life in terms of how is it that I can build one at one end an easier and better way to run the same business? Secondly, have I been up to date with the technology or the requirements of the changing business environment? And I've adapted myself to that. Not only one person, whole team is able to adapt themselves to that technology and so on and so forth. So therefore, improvement is a very key element of the PCMM principles. And finally, it's about evolving. And not only evolving for 1 year or 2 years, no. It is a constant evolving process. So these are the kind of tenets or principles of the PCMM process. So what are these 4-5 levels, right? So here it is. So the first one is not really a level. So it's initial. It's like all your processes or some processes are there. Then comes manage, define, predictable. Now, when you look at this and optimizing, when you look at this, you see that it starts with your basics: compensation, training, performance management, communication, all these things. Remember when I looked at the org chart, right? When we talked about HR department, I shared with you that there's a communications department, internal communications. So all that is basic. Then when you start defining it, you move to a participatory culture. You start moving to competency-based practices. Some of you would have heard competency-based practices, and I will talk a little bit about that tomorrow. So I will not divulge much today. That's a topic for tomorrow. So competencies. Are those behavioral and functional and technical competencies there? Now, is there workforce planning? Why is that important? Because while there may be people being able to do multiple jobs, you also don't want to burn out. It is important to have a certain level of efficiency. Moment you have a manpower utilization of more than 85 or 87%, you are leading that person to a burnout. So it's important to have workforce planning, analysis. Now look at the predictable area. Predictable areas is about understanding how you are now being able to build quantitative and qualitative performance measures and improvement parameters. So you start understanding this. And finally is continuous learning. So you put up a thing in place, you're constantly improving, constantly re-looking at the process. And it is not because an HR guy suddenly got up in the morning and said, Acha coffee mila, so now get up and let me go to work and improve everything. No, it is where an organization comes together and it's alive. The accounts team sits with the HR guy, the business guy sits with it. They are alive and all are working towards improving. Nobody is bothered about ye mera area hai, and how dare you tell me about my area. I know it better. Yes, you do. But as an internal customer, I may have a point of view. Where you stand, you're correct. Where I stand, I'm possibly correct. Is there an area that you can look at what I'm saying and improve? So it's an organization that is constantly optimizing, constantly improving. So as you can see, organizations always want to be up this curve. So a good organization is at level 3. And then level 4 and level 5. Level 5 is a little difficult to do. It is, you really need a good amount of years. You need also a lot of focus from the top management. Is not something that happens in 2 months, 3 months. Everybody wants to say that the child has to be born in immediately. No, it takes 9 months, right? So similarly like this, for creating an optimizing organization, it takes years and consistent effort in a particular level and way and belief. Because people think that ek saal mein I put money in this area, what is the ROI? Okay, yes, it's important to understand what's the ROI, but it is not something that's going to come out in 1 year's time. So it's about that. So this is what the PCMM framework is all about. And I would urge you and the organizations that you are guiding and looking at to walk this journey, not because of certification. Yes, you can go for certification. But if you look at the principles and you start imbibing these principles, you're automatically improving engagement, performance, retention, and finally, the orientation towards growing the organization. So this is what I would like to leave you with on this. Now, there are a few things that I want to talk to you about. And these are the next few slides are all my experiences on these particular topics. So I have showed you what HR audit is all about, the robustness of the different areas that you look at it. It's not only a fact-finding scenario, how you look at an HR audit as a lever to see yourself benchmarking and grow, to look at relevance, to look at employee experience. I also shared with you what is a great place to work and what is that process, why would you do it, and what goes into it. And I also shared with you a framework that can happen, that you can use to benchmark yourself. So when you're at level 3 or level 4, there are almost 350 to 450 different HR practices that you benchmark against. So you see that's quite robust and quite in-depth. Now from here on, I thought I'll pick up a few areas since we talked about the element of being a great place to work. And I wanted to share with you some radical thoughts to leave you with that, so that where you are also trying to create a great place to work. Now, one of the key elements of HR has to be focused on data. Just like each one of you look at your MIS and you're so very used to reading numbers, looking at numbers, trends, percentages, and calculations and results. Also, you are so very familiar. Similarly, like that, HR teams need to be familiar with numbers. with analysis, with data, with trends, with understanding how things are moving and how an input changes and gives you a different outcome. These are things that HR must look at. And it is no longer a luxury, it is an imperative. So data analysis, design thinking principles, process reengineering are fundamentals that HR must have, and including accounts guys must have. I think that is key for each one of you. So remember we talked about the onboarding process, right? All of us talked, some of us think about onboarding processes saying, "Aar usme kya hai? Somebody has to join, right? Give him the form to fill. वो एक छोटा सा chair or table में बैठ के भी is doing his work, and you get when he comes on board, induction हो जाता है, etc. etc. So many times as senior people, we don't have time for induction to give induction to juniors who join in our team, right? Because we are very busy. That is wrong, and I'll tell you why. So when we did a study, we realized that in the early life, when I say early life, 0 to 90 days, जैसे आप when you're making a house and when you put a tile on the wall and you put cement, how the first few hours of curation of that cement is very critical in ensuring that that tile sticks to the wall and it doesn't come out, as a result of which that bathroom is waterproof and so on and so forth, and there's no popra coca in the whole thing. That particular time is very critical, and if that is not done correctly, and that mixture of sand and cement and water and reti is not done correctly, that whole exercise is waste. So it is the skill of the artisan, it is in the quality and the mixture of the material, and it is in the time taken for that to heal that brings out the outcome, right? Similarly, like that in our onboarding. Let me tell you through data that onboarding is the most significant element in building a stickiness in the early life. Remember that must be true concept, very critical. So if you don't look at onboarding by virtue of data and by virtue of a different way, then you have missed the bus. So when you do onboarding, it starts at recruitment. Today, whatever I say as a recruiter, when I'm explaining the offer and explaining the company and explaining the role, it cannot be left to the recruiter to get up one morning, he had a good chai, he's a good mood, so he said good things. The next day, बीवी के साथ झगड़ा हुआ or something happened and stuff, so he comes to the office, gives a bad review. It doesn't work like that, because remember what I told you in day one, 50-50 chance of success is not acceptable to organizations today. There has to be at least an 85% success predictability. So therefore, a recruitment stage is scripted. Whatever that person has to say to an employee on the offer and on the company and on the role has to be scripted, so that even if he comes with a good day or a bad day or a what day and a no day, he sticks to the script, and that script is carefully crafted to give the right message to that employee. Because remember, that employee is going to remember this, come to the organization on day one and check for must be true. So that is the first. Second, the person is coming to your organization not to divorce. Okay, so the person is joining your organization as a marriage, and they want to build at least 2 years to see what is happening. Even the millennials, okay, they want to see. But if you don't create a good must be true, that is going to break quickly in the new generation. It took a little longer in our generation. In my generation, it took even longer. So when you are doing that, please understand that the person is coming to live there. Har cheez ek din mein mat karo. He is there with you. So we gave him all the forms, we give him everything. 3 hours, that person is only filling. Not required. Break it down. It also gives you an opportunity to meet that person and interact with that person at regular intervals. Because what happens if I fill all the information in day one, there is no reason for me to now talk to him. So he's gone in the job and he's lost. But if I had still 2-3 pieces of information to gather, I have a reason to go back to that person and say, hey, hi, how are you? Yeah, how everything is fine. By the way, I need some 5 pieces of information. So you see how you are creating that must be true. The induction program has to be short. Short in the sense relevant. It has the MDs and the promoter's message, and that message is only talking about the company's vision, mission, and values. Because please understand, he is reiterating. He's not creating something new, because the must be true is happening in the mind of the person viewing that video. So if he saw it on the website, the recruiter told him, now the MD is telling him, remember, you're cementing it. You're allowing that to become harder and harder. So the induction has to have very simple 3 parts. Message from the MD. It has to have about the organization, the role, and only positive policies of the company. Do not talk about that if you don't come on time for 3 days, pagar katega. If you don't mark your attendance, ye hoga. If you don't do your performance appraisal like this, ye hoga. See, we keep doing this mistake. The induction is pure positive. Why? Because nobody joined the organization in the first day to say, chalo aaj jaake in organization ke andar jaake main I'll do some kand. Nobody comes like that with that perspective. So why should the induction program talk negative? It has to only talk positive. And only those policies that that person can remember. How many things can one person remember in day 1? It is not possible. So let's keep some things for a few days later. And thirdly, it is important to have only those who you've selected in the organization to do this, who do it. There's no random guy getting up Monday and said, chalo, I'll do induction today. And the third element, very critical, that if you are showing a video of the company, have the real current employees on that video. You know why? Because the moment he goes into the floor, he's searching for that person's face. And if he sees him there in his department, he says the tick mark, must be true concept, tick mark. Sense of belonging starts kicking in the subconscious mind. So you see how how an onboarding process, collecting documents, even filling the form has to have a sequence, psychological sequence of what first, name, middle name, last name, then you start with wife, children, then parent, that is mother first, father second. You see, if you don't think of it in this manner, you are not impacting the experience. Then it is just another company, just another day for that person to have joined. You've not made the difference. You've not shown him the difference between you owning something that is brilliant versus something that is average. So when I wanted to bring this example to you, this is an example that actually we had done. It won one of the best HR strategy awards. But other than all that award, etc., the knowledge that I wanted to share with you is that this is what is the true employee experience. This is what is the true outcome of an HR process. And so therefore the HR audit needs to ensure that when it gets into checking an HR process, is it delivering to what that product or that process meant to have delivered? And this is why I brought this example to help you understand. By the way, this reduced the attrition by 10% in year 1 and 5% in year 2, over and above the 10% in year 1. So you can imagine how this impacted. And you did simple things. Whatever I told you right now, nothing, kuch bhi rocket science nahi tha, no kharcha. We just did it in a particular way, consistently, and you got a different result because you cared. So this is one of the things that I wanted to share with you. We talked about great place to work. Money is all nice. Everybody likes the performance bonus to be paid. Nobody likes performance bonus not being paid. But it is important for you to reprimand and not pay those who are performing below the particular level. You cannot allow mediocrity to flourish in an organization. It has to be super performance. So if somebody is lagging behind, go there as a good Samaritan and help him or her to improve. But if they still don't improve, then they don't get the bonus. That's how it is. Now, having said that, money is at one end, recognition is at another. So I put this slide here to help you understand that employee recognition also is a very critical piece of a great place to work. Now, recognition is again not about money. It is about just having somebody being told a wow, you did a great job. Now that has become a science, okay, in terms of how you actually do it. So my knowledge and my experience would say that you break this down. One, at a department level, that can happen every quarter, and every monthly for small achievements that have happened within your team. But every quarter is good enough. Every half yearly among the full department. So even in your finance department, you would have treasury, you would have the accounts team, you would have the finance team, the controller, the company secretary elements, the risk team, etc. All that forms part of the CFO's portfolio. So while you're doing one small recognition program with the accounts team, once in 6 months, you do it at the CFO level across the entire portfolio that he or she manages. And then there is the annual awards, which happen across the organization. Now, you can make it like an Oscar, your own little Oscar awards. So like, for example, those who get nominated and get awards in the quarterly and the monthly and the 6 monthly are eligible to be in the best of the best. And the best of the best are then taken for the annual awards. So that's how you can do it. And only those who have got the awards across the world, okay, it's not necessarily only in India. If you're present only in India, and globally it is done all across the world. That is how you build the best of the best in terms of those elements. Okay, so so that is the reward and recognition program. Now the other element is around what do you reward and recommend. So at one end, there is performance, very obvious. But there are two more very critical areas. Remember at the start, we talked about culture, and Hemantji also reminded us that culture is very important. You have cultural award. Now that award is about the values. How do you define culture? Is when you live the values. So the CEO or the MD or the promoters award for the values. Now the value could be respect. So award for respect, award for care, award for commitment in whatever you have as your values. Now, those are values, those are awards given to those who have exemplarily displayed consistently over the year, walking the talk and ensuring that they have actually done whatever you have defined in the values and the culture of the organization. And they are recommended by people in the company. And the CEO finally decides among that who should be given that award. It's a matter of tremendous pride, I must tell you. So it is not only about the award for your performance, it's also the award for culture. So you're reiterating culture. Now let's link it together. We looked at earlier the HR department. We saw performance management. In performance management, there was the what, which is the role, the KROs or the goals. There is the how, which is the competencies. And then there's the values, cultural elements in your performance management. Your increments are reflective of how you perform. The reward and recognition is reflective of how you are as a human being and a professional in the organization. Everything is linked. So you create the base, and from that base, you link everything together. Nothing is done in its isolation. So there's consistency of message. There's consistency of how as an organization you want people to perform, behave, and grow. And that is how you answer the question of the CEO in terms of sustainability and of growth. So this is how you could look at the awards. And last, of course, is the sports and CSR. So if anybody has, so you're obviously to promote sports and extracurricular activities, especially among women. And also in terms of CSR activities. Now, whether you are a company that has by law need to do CSR activities if you reach that stage or not. But I'm sure there are people in your organization who are already doing CSR activities by themselves or through the organization. Reward it. Talk about it, because that only shows. And then once it is put on the internet, please understand all those joining you are also reading all this. And they also get to see the flavor of the organization through these things. And so the must be true tick mark happens again. They have a reward. They look at that, they have CSR. Oh, look at that, they are rewarding people for values, which means It must be an organization that cares. So you see what is happening when you use the social media to your advantage and position all these things over there. So reward and recognition is a very, very powerful tool. Organizations have used this tremendously and very effectively to build a great place. So reward and recognition is not something that you just did a trophy de diya and random. No, it is a very thought through strategic action in building a great place to work. Okay. Um, so one is this. 1 second. Right. Sorry. So why is my just give me a second. It's not moving the screen. Okay, we're back. Hopefully my screen changes. Wonderful. One of the things of a great place to work is employee satisfaction. So an employee satisfaction survey earlier, if most of you would be aware of, was done once a year. It is either the Gallup survey or the Aon Hewitt survey, or you could design something of your own. Either which way, it was a program that ran once a year. But that's all in the past. Nowadays, organizations run employee satisfaction surveys quarterly because they're saying that if I have to learn anything about what is not going well in the organization and equally what is going well, I might as well learn it now. Why should I wait till the end of the year? As you know, business dynamics are changing pretty frequently. Organizations need to modify, adapt themselves to meet those business environments. So then why should an employee satisfaction survey tell me something at the end of the year? Why can't it tell me every quarter? Now, then some of you may argue and say, why can't it do it every month? There's a reason why you don't do it every month. Because the moment you go and ask for feedback, I spoke about this in my previous 2 days, and you don't do anything about it, people will stop trusting your feedback, your employee listening process, and will refuse to give feedback. Even if they give you feedback, it will not be true. So therefore, you have to give yourselves time to act on the feedback given. So quarterly. So you heard it in year one, month one, you action it in month 2 and 3, and then you start doing the survey back again in month 4. So this is how it happens. Now you could resort to a 6-point scale or a 4-point scale, right? So there are 3 or 4 buckets that most employee satisfaction surveys evaluate and look at. One, those areas that need to be monitored. There are those areas that need to be sustained. Now, see, please understand the most important element of an employee satisfaction survey is to understand those things that I need to do more and more. Yeah, have you heard of this where people tell you, find out your weaknesses and improve on them? My statement to you is find out your strengths and sharpen them to an area that they are the best and focus on those. Yes, you can try to improve your weaknesses, but have you really tried to sharpen your strengths and focus only on that and play to it? So therefore, it is also very important for you to look at satisfaction from those elements in the organization that you need to sustain, because good things should not happen by accident. They have to happen by design. And the moment they happen by design, organizations start performing at a particular level. So what are those things I want to sustain? What are those areas I need to improve? Now, there are things that are good, but we are not doing it well, so we need to improve on it. But there are those that I want to monitor, which is sitting in the strongly disagree and disagree process. Those are those people or those things that are actively disengaging employees, and it is very important for you to monitor that. Now, typically in an organization, if you have more than 7 to 8% sitting in an actively disagree, then it's reaching a double digit, it's a cause for worry. Why? Because those are people who are sitting in your organization and destroying your fabric. You must know what to do with them. You must know how to convert them into being actively engaged. because the slightly disagree and the slightly agree, or those who say agree, are on the fence actually. And these are the characters who are actually disengaged. They influence them to come more and more into the disagree or the disengaged area. Now that is when organizations start suffering. So it is important for you to look at and understand how is it that I need to monitor those things and ensure that slowly and steadily I am eradicating. So the steps are: create a survey. There are surveys. There is one part of the survey that is standard questions to understand the employee satisfaction quotient. So you don't change that. There is a second part where you can add questions relevant to your own organization. Secondly, you announce it, you roll out the survey, ensure that at least 80% of the population gives the survey. I mean, that's what you're minimally required to do, right? At least 85 or 80% of the population actually say what they want to say in an anonymous manner. They document the findings. And when you're making your findings, if there's a team of less than 5, then do not have that team score, because it is easy to find out who has said what. So only if the team is 5 and above, you can have a team score, so to say, and you can divulge those findings. Formulate action plans. Tell the people this is the action plan. Do the action plan. And then finally, you have to do the must be true. Remember, guys, must be true must be there everywhere. So you said this, I did this. You said this is wrong. Okay, we corrected it. This is what we did. You said, give me more money, but I cannot give you more money. But still, I'm telling you that this is what we did. So it is very important to say this, saying that you said this in the survey, this is what we did. So the must be true tick mark happens again in the organization. So this is employee satisfaction survey in terms of how is it as an organization you are benchmarking. Remember, this is all going towards creating a great place to work. The employee satisfaction survey also in a way is an audit, because it allows you to elicit responses that is a very candid and in your face kind of way of telling you whether you are doing well or you suck it. So you know that you're doing well, or you know that you're doing a rotten job of the whole thing. So your HR processes, are they delivering or they're not delivering? If you're doing and creating great managers in your organization, but they are destroying the fabric of the company, that means that process is not working. So people will come into the organization because the organization is great. They leave the organization because of the kind of supervisors and the people in the organization and the environment. So it is very, very important that when you're creating a great place to work, it is everything to do about that environment. Okay, so employee satisfaction. The last thing that I want to talk about is exit analysis. Now, all of us are used to this exit analysis. Exit analysis, as you've known, you may have seen some of these reports. They talk about better prospects, people have health reasons, marriage, higher education. This is the reasons why people are leaving us. I am saying that is all rubbish. Simply because what are you going to do with that information as a head of finance or as a CA or even as an HR department? If you get to know that 20% of the people are leaving for better prospects, okay, so earlier it was 18%, now it is 20%. So maybe you can do a marginal correction in the salary, because maybe your benchmarking exercise, as we spoke about it yesterday, may not be accurate. So that's one step that you can take. But is it telling you anything else? No. People are relocating, people have health reasons. Is it telling anything else? Is there any action that as a CXO, CEO, or as a manager can you take? Limited. So organizations have scrapped this, or progressive organizations have scrapped this. They really want to know only just two things. What is it that I could have done better when you are in my organization? And what is it that I could do to improve? In the sense, what is it that I have been doing well that I need to do more of? And what is it that I was not doing well that I should change? That's it. And if you are able to get that clearly, candidly, and truly from those who are leaving your organization, you can actually have action plans. And those action plans can be right from CEO down to the last guy. Now, why does the CEO need to have an action plan? Yes, very, very critical. Remember, we said great place to work. And if the CEO doesn't walk the talk and the CEO doesn't talk about the problems and says, this is what we've done to improve this, you are not a living organization. Then you are just one harm. I'm the boss and I'm not reachable. Do I need to talk to employees? No, that's not the attitude. So it is important for everybody to have that conducive attitude to work. So therefore, if you do your exit analysis in this fashion, you are actually able to create an action plan that will truly improve the experience employees have. Remember, it is the last thing that people feel in a store when you're shopping that keeps the experience in the taste in your mouth. Similarly, like this, the FNF process and the exit analysis or the exit meeting is the one that leaves the good taste in the mouth. So do it well and ensure that you are actually getting things that are fostering and moving you towards the kind of great place to work. I'm going to talk about two employee listening areas, two slides on employee listening, and then I will open it up for questions. Now, there are different times when you do employee feedback. First, when you do the orientation, that is the induction. The second, in the period of 6 to 8 months. And there's a purpose reason why it is done in 6 to 8 months. Okay, because at that time, you are going through confirmation. You're going through a little bit of anxiety. Will I get confirmed? Not? Is my job okay? Not okay? Even the guy is a GM also goes through this. वो दिखाते नहीं है, but he is also going through it. So 6 to 8 months, good time to do a feedback. Third is within the year, all those who've completed a year, do an HR kind of forum or listening where people come and talk to you. Now, I will say two things here. Employee behavior in terms of the reason to leave and the way they leave changes as they progress in tenure in the organization. If a person decides to leave in 0 to 6 months, they are even okay to drop the damn ball next day and leave the company. As they progress through the 12th to the 18th month, they start respecting notice period. And as they more tenured in the organization, more the respect to the organization. So understand these elements. So purposely within the year, go and meet. The second thing that I want to say about this is that any employee listening is never about constant tell me bad about the company. No, it is first to reiterate the values, reiterate the culture, reiterate the policies. And the last part is there any challenge that you're facing in the organization that we can improve on? So please understand that you don't walk into a room saying, "Ha, batao, what is going wrong in this company?" No, it is also an opportunity to reiterate few things about what is happening in this company and then get the feedback from people. So please understand it's a two-way street. So that is what this is. There's whistleblow, which is the anonymous somebody whistleblowing on anything that is happening in the organization that is probably bordering on integrity, etc. And finally, there's coffee with Karan, as they say, or coffee with MD, that you should do. The MD needs to be seen as a human being who is approachable and is alive and is just like anybody else. He is not somebody who runs from the car to the office, to the cabin, to the car, to the cabin, to the office in the lift. No. So there has to be somebody who's visible, seen, talked to, because he or she is the only person who knows or completely vibes with the vision, mission, culture, and values of the organization as they have created it when there was one employee to today when there's 3 to 500 or 600 or whatever number of employees. And that has to percolate to everybody. And they are the best people who can do it. Okay, so this is what I want to leave you with. And finally, employee well-being. In certain parts of the world, Middle East, for example, started having a ministry in the cabinet for happiness. So a lot of organizations, the Scandinavian countries, a lot of places started having happiness index as a very powerful and important measure in every organization. So therefore, progressive companies have looked at how I am able to create happiness. And that happiness can be in different ways, whether it's sports, whether it is wellness programs, whether it is, leaders interacting with people, trainings, projects. You can put through projects, and those are not necessarily projects given by client. There are internal projects for improvement that you could do. and those are all things that bring in happiness. People talk about work-life balance. And I want to say here, it is about when you're at work, how well are you managing work? And when you're at home, how well are you managing home? And that is balance. It is not that I'm spending 8 hours here and 8 hours there. It is about how I am present in the place that I am present in. How am I sitting at home and I'm present in the office? I think it is that. And only an organization that focuses on these areas truly allows a person to be able to work well when they are working and be at home well when they are at home. And being concerned about those things, being able to bring in HR policies and practices that are conducive to those things is what helps an organization be a great place to work. So if you notice, all these things are doable. None of these cost too much of money. So for the finance guy, etc., to get worried, yes, the Mediclaim policy is one thing that costs a decent amount of money, but by and large, everything else is doable. It is something that it just needs a little effort. It just needs a top-down approach. It just needs that all of us work together towards this cause and not think of it only as an HR department's agenda. Yes, they are the experts, but it is not only their agenda. So I'm going to stop here. And it is important that while we say customer is king, it is also to put the employee first. And the moment you start doing that, you are able to build a great place to work. So I'm going to pause here, and I thank you. And I'm open to any questions that you would like to ask.
Thank you, Kevin sir. That was a very nice session. You spoke uninterrupted the past 2 hours. Nice learning experience for all of us, listening to different aspects than the ones in which we practice normally. Sweet.
So can you, in brief, explain the importance of audit of risk management in the areas of HR, potential risks like strikes, etc., etc. Right. I think that's a fantastic point. And risk element, governance and risk is a collective responsibility. And so HR has to have a risk register. And that risk register, one of the elements is strike, yes. The other element is about our lack or inability to attract the right set of skills, the ability to retain those set of skills, the risk also to have said that, am I able to build future skills? See, I remember what the CEO is asking, right? He is asking sustainability, he's asking growth. How is this organization going to perpetuate itself and give the returns to all stakeholders? So those are the same. So because of that, how is the HR department impacting? And so therefore the risk register needs to be done. So some of the areas are of those natures. Yes, the strike is one of the aspects. The aspect of the fact that we are now gone global, and maybe our lack of knowledge would also create a risk of non-compliance. And so what is it that we need to do to support, to ensure that we are doing the right thing in those geographies? There is also a possibility of breakdown of process. And is that going to impact the organization? So I think these are some things that are risks elements and risk registers, perform risk registers. Safety and health is another topic that has not been talked, or it is there in factories, but needs to be talked more about also in the service kind of industry. Also in terms of what you call inclusivity and diversity. Okay, and those are also elements that one needs to bring in. Because people look at it only in terms of saying male female ratio, and it's not just about that. It's about, is the inclusivity and diversity an element that brings in an area of advantage, a strategic advantage to the growth of an organization? If the answer to that question is yes, then there has to be a corresponding element of risk. So this is how I look at the risk register of an HR department. I hope I've answered that question. Sir, your presentation is so general on the HR policies, not directly addressing the CA firms. Have too many complexities. For example, we have an office manual that governs ICFI guidelines. Secretary clause, declaration time. I'm unable to get such inputs from your. Hope these would follow at least before you to complete the 4 days. So HR policies. See, HR policies is a vast topic. Okay, and I had actually asked the team and asked the people, if at all you have a specific request for or requirement on HR policies that you would like me to dive into, that would be more relevant rather than talking about an HR policy in general. So if there is something that you are needing, please bring it out here in the chat and I shall be happy to address it, rather than having 2 hours, which is not going to do justice to an HR policy, and so therefore the expectation. But I'm happy to answer a particular question. What is the process of sabotage leaves required without pay to upbringing kids? Any last update or trend going? Okay. Employees can go to leave and not quit. Yeah, actually, let me give you some food for thought. So childbearing and all, and that element is actually very it has actually become a very important part now in the work-life balance, work culture, work element, and things like that. So some of the things that have happened. So one, you've heard of the maternity leave. Yes, you've also heard of paternity leave now. In some organizations, not in India, but in some organizations, and some in India now have started, where they have looked at saying that if the lady is on a maternity leave, okay, can the father take part of that maternity leave and stay at home while the wife comes back to work, because she also has a career and she also wants to get back, but there's a need to take care of the infant. So can they interchangeably use the maternity leave? Okay, so that's one different thought process that is there to take care of upbringing of kids. The other element is around giving parents, especially in the Indian context, the 10 standard, the 12 standard. So sometimes companies also look during that period and see if it is the first child or second child, depending on how you'd like to design it. And can there be some leave granted? Because as you know, in the Indian context, it's not only the child, but also the parent that goes through the exam. So without having the pressure on the parents, at the same time, it is an acceptable scenario. So the lady, especially the lady in the family, is not losing out on her competitive ability in the organization. So these are some of the things that are happening around us that you could take request to. Another element is to look at the lady working from home now while she's on maternity, not full-fledgedly, but because she also wants to keep in touch, and if she is able to, and there is something in her role that she can impact, you could look at those things. Yes, Himanshi.
Sir, no more questions with you, sir? Thank you, Kevin, sir, for answering the queries after such a long session. So to wind up, it's my privilege to propose the vote of thanks to the learned speaker. I would like to express my sincere thanks to Mr. Kevin Dias for giving an excellent coverage to HR audit and how to be the best employer in the world. Sir, your in-depth knowledge on the topic has given us a valuable insight on the same. And also, I would like to thank all the esteemed delegates, our members, for being with us this evening. It's been a great pleasure. And looking forward to tomorrow for day 4 of the webinar on human resource management and labor laws. Thank you, Kevin, sir.
Yeah, thank you. And also to that question, I just want to say that we did talk about the confidentiality clause, and we talked, if you remember, Hemanji, we talked about confidentiality clause and IP and things like that in the appointment letter. So if those can be reiterated to the gentleman asking or the lady asking the question. So thank you so much for having me here today once again. And I'm so glad that I was able to share some of my knowledge, and I hope it was, useful to each one of you. Thank you once again, and God bless, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much, sir. We now close the session.
Thank you, sir.